I love the watch so much that I kind of don't want to take it off of my wrist. Incidentally, the camera dude is cracking me up because he like really knows about watches. Like, you know, because he was talking about What's going on, guys? Waco from Revolution here with Jeremiah Chan, and today the subject matter is all about integrated bracelet sports watches.
I can't contain my excitement because I think if you see behind Wei right here, then you've got a big clue of what we're going to talk about.
In fact, it's one of the most hotly anticipated watches of all time, and it is the return of the Ingenieur. But before we get into IWC's Ingenieur, let's talk a little bit about the history of the integrated bracelet sports watch, right? So let's go back in time to when cars were small because of the gas crisis and hair was huge because everyone wanted to have big hair. And we're talking about
the small cars.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, they had to scoot down, right? And we're talking, of course, about the 1970s. And in 1972, we have the first appearance of the integrated bracelet sports watch designed by the legendary Gérald Genta. And in fact, I'm wearing a version of that as well. I'm wearing a blue ceramic perpetual calendar.
Not just any version, Wei.
It's very kind of you. Apparently, it's quite challenging to get. So, okay, the truth is I made it myself in a 3D printer, but I'll reveal that technology later. However, shortly afterwards, the world embraced the integrated bracelet sports watch with an unbridled passion, which was interesting because it took a while for it to take off.
Yeah.
And in 1976, we have two incredible watches designed by the legendary Gérald Genta. One of them, which you guys of course know, is the Patek Philippe Nautilus, right? And the second one is
the IWC Ingenieur.
The IWC Ingenieur, which from a design perspective is just as stunning, just as contemporary, but had one very different technical feature. And in fact, we have the watch right here, and we wanted to talk to you about that as well. So let's take the watch out. And this watch was just an absolute beast on the wrist, right? It's 40 mm in diameter, but as you can see here, it was a beast on the wrist at over 12 mm in terms of thickness, right? But why was this watch so thick? Well, in order to understand that, we have to go back to the roots of the Ingenieur back in 1955. So tell us about the particularity of that watch.
I mean, when IWC launched the Ingenieur in 1955, it looked completely different. It looked kind of like a dress watch, right? Yeah. And Ingenieur, it's French for engineer. It was made for members of the scientific community, and they were working in environments that probably contain a lot of magnetic fields. So when IWC came up with that watch, it had a soft iron inner cage, right, to kind of attract, the exterior magnetic fields so that it would not affect the movement and magnetize the movement and then affect the accuracy and the performance.
In fact, if I'm not mistaken, that's called a Faraday cage.
Yeah, so a Faraday cage is named after its inventor, this 19th century scientist called Michael Faraday. It basically is able to redistribute electrical charges and electromagnetic radiation on the exterior of the cage. So it is made of a material that is a conductor, or what is called a hollow conductor, where all the charge and radiation is isolated to the outside and it does not affect the interior. So with a soft iron that you have, it attracts a magnetic field as well on the outside of the cage, again, not affecting whatever's on the inside.
So I think that this is the interesting thing as well, because this was technology that was introduced in 1955 with the Ingenieur. And incidentally, to this day, magnetism in watches still accounts for over 90% of the reasons why people go to the service center. If you go to the service center and you're like, hey dude, my watch is running slow, or hey dude, my watch is running fast, probably your watch has been magnetized. And it's so easy to magnetize it today because we have so many electronic devices all around us. You put it on your iPad, your laptop, your mobile phone, and there's a potential it's going to get magnetized.
So with respect, it's probably your fault and not the brand's.
Yes, probably.
Don't give your watchmakers grief.
So the whole idea with IWC was like, okay guys, we're going to create a beautiful Genta design integrated bracelet sports chic watch, but we have to take the technology which we introduced, the egg magnetic property of a Faraday cage, and introduce it into this watch as well, which is why it's thicker, because it contains a soft iron inner case.
Exactly, right? And it's called the SL, which is a different designation from the original 1955 watch, and SL stands for steel line.
So on the wrist, the watch is absolutely stunning to behold, but it is an absolute beast as well. I mean, look at that, as they say in normal parlance, or as they say in modern parlance, is a stack height on that beast.
Right.
So much so that this watch was nicknamed in Germany the Strong Box.
Really?
Right, yeah, exactly, in reference to a massive safe as well. And I guess in terms of its construction in principle is with this Faraday cage around the movement, it is kind of a safe, protecting the movement from magnetism. But I have to say the watch is incredibly beautiful as well. So you see it's characterized by a Genta style bezel that's got screws in it.
I mean, it's iterating off the porthole design, right?
Exactly.
Just like the Royal Oak and the Nautilus.
But the interesting thing, I think you were pointing this out to me, is that these screws are actually not functional, they're decorative. And so in the old watches, the entire bezel was screwed into the case, and sometimes these little holes would not align perfectly at 12 o'clock.
I know,
Right.
and I know you have a skinny version of this, right? And you said you're going to probably go home and check whether.
Yeah, because that's exactly something that would give me enormous anxiety. So now that I'm thinking about this, I can't wait to go home and actually, oh dude, look at this. This one's not aligned. Okay, we're going to show you the Skinny Engineer later, and this one is totally not aligned at 12 o'clock. Oh man, I'll be so upset if it's not aligned. Okay. Well, anyway, the point is that this watch also has other characteristics that you associate with Genta. Part of it is a textured dial as well. So as you remember, you have the Clou de Paris in the Royal Oak, you have the striping in the Nautilus, and here you've got probably the most unique sort of dial shape as well. Which, how would you describe this pattern, Jeremiah?
I mean, it kind of looks like a a checkered pattern. You know what I mean? Like, it's like just very tiny mini squares of like an alternating design.
Yeah, it almost looks like a woven basket.
Exactly.
Like
Basket
overlaid.
weave.
Yeah,
Basket
exactly.
weave.
And I think it's really cool as well. The other thing too is it has a very distinctive bracelet with these center links that are kind of curved, or galbé as they say in the French. I don't know why I'm saying French, because IWC is based in like Schaffhausen where they speak German, but nonetheless. However, it makes this bracelet very stiff. So if you can see that Jeremiah is putting it on, and it's not like he has a small wrist, he's got a very masculine wrist. May I
don't know about that.
May I commend you on your wrist, Jeremiah. However, as you can see, there's quite a bit of overhang on either side, right? Which, so, I mean, it's probably made for like a big Swiss German or German dude, right? So to address this issue, IWC came out with what we call the Skinny Engineer in the 1980s, right?
Yes.
And I happen to have a version of this watch in yellow gold, which has the Omani crest, the Khanjar on there as well.
Which is cool. I've seen it. Yeah. It's an insane one.
It's what we call in IWC terms a Hannes Pantley special.
Okay.
Because the Hannes Pantley, who was the commercial director of IWC, would travel the world with these watches, and he ended up in Oman, and those became state gifts for the Sultan of Oman.
And he wouldn't come back. I mean, he wouldn't go back to Schaffhausen until he sold all of them.
Exactly.
That's dedication.
He's a legend. We love you, Hannes. So anyway, the Skinny Engineer to me is a fabulous watch because it takes all the amagnetic properties of the Engineer, but puts it in a much more wearable case. And this is clearly trying to address the idea of being able to have a watch on your wrist that is elegant and supple as well. It's a
I believe the first Skinny Engineer appeared in 1983 with the reference 3505, but the one that you have on your wrist is from 1989, and this is like a special clue on the side of the case, which it's engraved 500,000 amperes per meter. It's the magnetic resistance.
Yes.
If you translate that to Gauss, which I think most of you guys are more familiar with,
12 Gauss. Right?
No, about 6,200.
Okay.
So it's
6,300.
at the time it was a world record in
Impressive.
1989. So that's what kind of really special about this watch.
Fantastic. So we've seen the original from 1976, which we're going to put here. Actually, we'll put it back on their cushions. We've seen the Skinny Engineer, and of course, the idea that Genta created this iconic design almost 50 years ago has always been a question about collectors in terms of when are we going to bring the Engineer back today? When are we going to have an integrated bracelet IWC Sport Chic watch? Because of course, this is the hottest category around, right? And so people say like, hey, every year they go to the IWC booth and they go look for Christian Knut or they look for Chris Granger, and they're like, bro, when are we gonna get the Engineer back? When do we get the Engineer back? Well, it's back. And through the magic of editing, we're now going to show you that watch. Boom! Whoa, Jeremiah.
Oh man,
Through the magic of editing. Through the magic of editing, we have the new Engineers in front of us, and I have to say they're absolutely brilliant. So, okay, I'm going to give you the black dial one because I know that is your preference, and I'm going to take the white dial one. Yes, well, I think this would go particularly well this summer, along with my blinding white Speedo.
Got to post that on Instagram.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the first thing that I would say as soon as I put this watch on my wrist is it just feels amazing, which I cannot necessarily say about the vintage watch because of the overhang and the stiffness of the bracelet. So they have, of course, changed the shape of the center links as well, but that doesn't bother me at all. There's still a visual cue in terms of the similarity to the watch from the past.
I mean, there's still the H-link design, as you say. The nose shape center link has been changed. It's slightly elongated now.
but it's so supple on the
Yeah.
wrist. You know,
I mean, it
first
still
of all.
tapers down all the way to the clasp, right?
The second thing is I would say that they've really enhanced every element of the legibility on the watch as well. So you have the same basket weave pattern as well, but it's much more three-dimensional. It is stamped on an iron plate first
Yes,
before it's
correct.
galvanized.
Correct.
So that gives you a clue that, in fact, all the anti-magnetic properties or amagnetic properties have been retained. And incidentally, this is the only of the integrated bracelet sport chic watches that have a Faraday cage, which
Yes.
I think is absolutely brilliant. How else would I describe it? Well, I think it's just so elegant. The other thing that I really like also is that, hey, now all of the bezels align with the
Yeah.
screws, one of the screws precisely at 12 o'clock, because these screws are actually attaching the bezel to the case.
Yeah, because it's a polygonal design, and like as you say, it's no longer a screw in; it's kind of like a screw down. You know.
So I remember when I saw this watch at last Watches and Wonders, Chris Granger was very kind enough to present these two prototypes to me. And he had one without crown guards and he had one with crown guards. And I think that I really, really like the crown guards. I think they enhance the sort of like faceted sort of beauty of this watch. It creates a little distinct, sort of difference between the vintage watch and this one as well.
And they're kind of sleek, They don't protrude that much.
No, they're
from the
phenomenal.
case.
I really like them actually. What else can I tell you about this watch? Well, on the wrist, it's so elegant. Part of that is also due to the fact that it is so much thinner than the original watch. It's just over 10 mm in terms of thickness. I mean, what kind of movement do we have inside of here, Jeremiah? I know you're a movement guy.
Well, this is the caliber 32111. And I think what's the key feature of this is 120-hour power reserve, right? That's amazing. I mean, obviously the automatic pawl winding system that we know so well from IWC. And it's 5-day power reserve.
Fantastic.
To wear it throughout the week.
I also like
get on,
the
yeah.
depth of the indexes as well and how they contrast with that pattern on the dial. Filled with superluminova, of course, so you have maximum visibility. IWC is, after all, about practicality and pragmatism in addition to it being very beautiful. It is phenomenal, and it's great that we now have this entry in precisely the right configuration from IWC into the integrated bracelet sports world. However, one thing that's very interesting is related to the pricing of the watch, right? So it's 17,000 Singapore dollars.
Yeah, 17,300. Yeah.
$17,300. Okay, so
Check.
for those of you watching, please enter 17,300 SGD to CHF on your Google and it will magically appear to you,
Yeah.
because we don't want to give you the wrong rate, the fluctuations and the crazy things happening in the banking
Yeah.
system right now. However, from my perspective, that's an incredible value proposition, because looking at it in comparison to a Nautilus, it's like half,
Yeah,
right?
about.
Looking at it in comparison to a Royal Oak, it's like half.
Yeah.
Looking at it in comparison to overseas is like half,
Yeah.
right? It's cheaper even than the Chapek Antarctique. It's cheaper also than the Laurent Ferré Sport Classic.
Yeah.
And it's probably around the same
Chopard
as the
Alpine
Chopard
Eagle, right?
Alpine Eagle, which is also a great watch as well. And I think that that's very important, because from the beginning, IWC was always about creating value,
Yes.
right? The split-second chronograph, which they created, the Doppel chronograph, the world's most accessibly priced and also reliable split-second chronograph. The perpetual calendar, created by the legendary Kurt Klaus, also an incredibly accessible price complication for that category as well, right?
But beyond the price, it's also availability, right? Many of the watches that you mentioned are pretty hard to get.
Wait, are you saying that this watch is hard to get, Jeremiah?
Of course.
I
Yeah.
had no idea.
Well, but you 3D printed it. So
Yes, exactly. So if you were looking for one of these and you need a Waco 3D printed special, yeah, hit me up, slide into my DMs, as they say. So this is the first launch that we have with these two models in steel, in a black dial and in a white dial as well. There will also be a model in a beautiful aqua color as well,
in stainless steel.
in stainless steel.
At the same price.
And in the same price. The last version of that is the titanium version of
Yes.
that as well, which has got this beautiful slate gray dial and has these wonderful black frames for the applied indexes
Yeah, we
and
see
hands.
it's kind of like gray on gray tone.
It's phenomenal.
We'll see that in Watches and Wonders.
Yeah, and the other thing too is I love that watch also because of IWC's history in titanium. It was, after all, IWC in collaboration with Porsche Design
Yes.
that created the world's first luxury titanium watch as well. So what can I say? Great first overture to this new Ingenieur family. I love the watch so much that I kind of don't want to take it off of my wrist.
You're going to try to put it in order, right?
Yeah, we'll have to have a chat with the good
I
people
know.
from IWC.
Yeah, they're
later
off
on.
camera there.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
Yeah.
we're going to try our luck.
Incidentally, the camera dude is cracking me up because he really knows about watches. Because he was talking about okay. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us, Jeremiah. It's been a pleasure, sir.
Always way.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Peace.